Stress doesn't just show up out of nowhere. In most cases, stress is actually a consequence of neglect, a warning signal from your body and or your life that something's off. But when you take care of all the key areas of your life proactively, not retroactively, you build a strong foundation that helps eliminate unnecessary stress before it actually builds up. In this episode, I'm going to walk you through my Hexagon of Competence framework around the 6 areas of life and show you how managing them effectively reduces stress, improves your performance, and helps you feel more in control of your life. I'm also going to share real examples from my own calendar to show you how I apply this framework in my daily life. All right, you guys, I'm diving in. I want to handle the topic of stress. Stress is something that impacts all of us. It will always impact all of us, but it's to the degree to which stress impacts you that's the real story. And oftentimes, stress is impacting us to a large degree in which it's crippling us, preventing us from moving forward, preventing us from being able to live our lives the way that we want to, preventing us from attacking goals the way that we want to be able to. And so it's important to understand that stress oftentimes is not random. There are inevitabilities of life that happen. There are life situations, life circumstances that are completely out of your control that can knock you upside the head or knock someone you love upside the head and be very stressful and very stress-inducing. But that's not exactly what we're talking about today. We're talking about the type of stress that is within your control. We're talking about the kind of stress that actually comes because of your retroactive neglect, meaning you neglected something in your life that has led to an unnecessary problem, an unnecessary challenge that could have been avoided if you would have acted proactively. And so it's really important to think about these things. Stress is often tied to a delayed consequence. The duration of neglect will directly correlate to the magnitude of the consequence. Now, what do I mean by that? If you neglect working out for one day, not a huge deal. If you neglect it for a week, probably still not that big a deal. If you neglect it for a year or 10 years, probably much bigger deal. What about your finances? If you neglect your bank account for a week, it's probably not going to be a big deal. If you neglect your budget for a month, maybe a bigger deal. If you neglect it for a year, 5 years, 10 years, huge deal. Last one, relationships. I have a wife. If I didn't go on a date night with her this week, probably wouldn't be the end of the world. If I didn't do it this month, again, we would regret it, but probably not that big a deal. If we didn't go on a date night 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, our relationship might be in shambles. And so the duration of neglect will directly correlate to the magnitude of the consequence. The longer you neglect a particular area of your life or a particular thing, the bigger the consequence it's going to be. It's not a matter of if there's going to be a negative consequence. It's just a matter of when, and it's a matter of how big the consequence is going to be. And so today I'm going to be talking about how to proactively act in all areas of your life, how to design your weeks, your months, your quarters, your years in order to act proactively so that you can avoid unnecessary problems and therefore avoid unnecessary stress. But before I do, I don't want you guys to miss the upcoming Nutrition Mastery Workshop. So I'd love to invite you to join us by going to nickcarrier.com/mastery. It's happening on Wednesday, September 3rd at 6 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Central Time. This is a sequential approach to how we can improve our eating habits, from caloric intake to eating real food to protein and fiber, everything like that. So it's step-by-step sequential approach that I think is the best way to attack eating healthy from the foundation all the way until optimization. And so you can go to nickcarrier.com/mastery to sign up for that workshop, and you'll hop on a Zoom call with me and a bunch of others on Wednesday, September 3rd at 6 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Central Time. For now, let's dive into the Hexagon of Competence. So if you've been following me for a little bit, you maybe have heard the breakdown of the Hexagon of Competence a little bit, but so this might be a quick review. And if you haven't, lock in. There's 6 core areas of life that every single one of us has. And these 6 areas are this: your health, personal life, career, finances, spiritual life, or relationships. Every single one of us has these 6 areas. We cannot avoid it. And in my estimation, the best version of yourself, your best you, is the version of you who is most competent and reciprocal. The version of you who can solve the greatest number of problems and take advantage of the greatest number of opportunities, both for yourself and for others. You're competent and reciprocal. Competence means you have knowledge, skills, and experience. Reciprocal means you have the character and the willingness to share that competence with other people so that you can help them solve their problems and help them take advantage of their opportunities. And so when we're navigating life, we want to be managing all 6 areas of life at all times, and maybe even be spiking in one of them. Spiking meaning we're spending more time, energy, and attention in that area for the sake of growth or for the sake of eradicating a frustration. But one of the things that is most important that we're going through today is the fact that we need to be managing all areas of life at any given point in time, because one of the biggest causations of stress is when people neglect one of these areas. And it might very well be incidental. It might be you're really trying to attack your career. And so you're burning the candle at both ends. You're waking up early. You're going to bed late because you're trying to get ahead. You're trying to get a promotion. You're trying to run your business. You're trying to start a business, whatever it is. And when you're in doing so, maybe you neglect your health, or maybe you neglect your significant other. And it might not be a big deal for 1 week, but it will turn into negative consequences when you wake up and you're 40 years old and you have gained 80 pounds and you're like looking yourself in the mirror like, what the heck happened? And so it's very oftentimes it happens when people are living their life. They neglect one of these 6 areas for some period of time. And again, the duration of neglect will directly correlate to the magnitude of the consequence. If you neglect one of these areas of your life for too long, it's not a matter of if there's going to be consequences, it's a matter of when, and it's a matter of how big the consequences are. And one thing we'll go dive a little bit deeper into here in a little bit is that managing all of these areas allows you to build a sturdy foundation that you can build on and fall back on. That sturdy foundation allows you to take bigger risks and attack really good goals, but it also allows you, when life smacks you upside the head and the inevitability of life happens and challenge happens, then you have something to fall back on. We'll dive a little bit deeper into that moving forward, but I want to give you some like real life examples of how I implement this on a annual basis, quarterly basis, weekly basis, and daily basis. So every single year I look at the 6 areas of my life and I finish/start each year by assessing how I currently feel like it's going and where I want to go in this upcoming year. And then just to get right into the practicality of today's episode, because the annual planning, the quarterly planning is more of a best you retreat thing. And we're doing the next best you retreat in January of 2026, just a little heads up there. But we're going to talk about the weekly planning mainly in today's episode. And so every single week I sit down with myself to plan out my week. It usually takes anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour. And I have 2 things. I have my Google Calendar pulled up, and then I also take out a sheet of paper where I divide it into 6 quadrants. I guess it's not quadrants. If it's 6, that's 4, but you get the idea. 6 different areas on the sheet of paper: health, personal, career, financial, spiritual, and relational. And I define what success looks like in all 6 of the areas for that given week. And sometimes the areas are super detailed. Sometimes the area is one very simple thing, but I just define what success looks like, or what maybe managing looks like in that area of life for that given week, depending on what I have going on in my calendar. And that might look like just habits. It might look like a to-do list. It might look like a checklist. And so, for example, in the health area of my life, as we currently sit here today in the beginning of August of 2025, mid-August 2025, my health is to lift 6 times a week. Right now, I'm currently still rehabbing from my hip injury, and so I'm doing 4 10-minute jogs every single week. And so those are the 2 things that I have written down and have checkboxes for under the health area of my life. In the personal area of my life, I am currently looking for new tenants in my rental property. And so I have checklist items, to-do items, as far as that goes, as far as getting new tenants in my rental property. I'm also working on preparing for my dad's member guest golf tournament that I'm playing in. So I have going to the driving range 3 times this week in the personal area of my life. And so sometimes this is hobbies. Sometimes this is managing my own home. Sometimes it's the rental property. Sometimes it's personal development. It can be a lot of different things in the personal area of your life. But to give you a sense, that's what I kind of have for this upcoming week. So that's health. That's personal. Career is usually a relatively extensive thing, right? Because that's your work. You usually have a lot of things that you want to do for your work. So I have a whole list of career things that I have down that I've defined as success. Then financial. Every single week, I have what I call a personal CFO meeting and a best you CFO meeting, because I have a CFO meeting for my personal life, for Kennedy and my life, and the state of our current finances. And then I also am the CFO of Best You. So I look at the Best You finances and see how things are going and see where we're moving forward. So I have those meetings with myself every single time. That's the financial area side of my life. So there's health, personal, career, financial, spiritual. For me, spiritual has been pretty simple. It's been doing my Bible app and prayer routine every single morning, 7 days a week, and going to church 1 time a week. So that's spiritual. And then relational is oftentimes very dependent on the week. Sometimes it might be going on a date night with Kennedy. Sometimes it might be wishing somebody a happy birthday. Sometimes it might be getting somebody a wedding gift off of their registry. Relational is one of those things where those are oftentimes things that can fall through the cracks that you wouldn't necessarily do if you didn't proactively think about them ahead of time. I mean, I'll just give you a relatively personal example. My sister-in-law was having her very first Mother's Day this year. And I wanted to make it a special first Mother's Day. And so I knew luckily I kind of had a full week, right? Because I think I was starting to think about it on Sunday and it was the following Sunday. So I had a whole 7 days to think about it. And then I wanted to make it special some way, somehow. And I spent the time to look up a little charcuterie meat and cheese board to be able to send to her. And it's like, would my life have been worse if I didn't proactively think about that and send that to her? No, my life wouldn't have been worse, but was it a very fulfilling thing for me to be able to do for her? And did it make me feel good to send her that kind of gift? And did she probably appreciate that kind of a thing? Of course. And so when we're talking about the best version of yourself, we're not talking about mediocre. We're not talking about good enough. We're talking about the best version of yourself. And so if you can proactively think about all 6 of these areas, it can really allow you to thrive and develop into the person that you want to develop into. So to get back to kind of the purpose of today is when you neglect an area of your life, it creates stress when it's not needed. And so oftentimes you're not thinking about these 6 areas, whether it's your significant other, some things in your personal life, your own mental health, or your physical health. If you neglect one of these 6 areas for too long of a period of time, there will be negative consequences. And so I don't want that for you. I want you to be able to really think ahead of time to avoid things that would not present themselves if you actually acted on them in advance. And so I really think that a lot of stress that people are incurring are due to their own level of neglect. Not looking at the number on the scale, not opening the bank account, not having the tough conversation with their significant other. Maybe not having the tough conversation with their boss. If we can be proactive rather than reactive, we're going to solve a lot of things in advance, and therefore we never even have to deal with any kind of stressor or problem in the future. So don't wait until the stress is so large to where you have no other option than to address it, because I think that's where most people live. Most people don't hire a trainer until their fitness is way gone. Most people don't hire a marriage counselor or a marriage therapist until their marriage is almost gone and they're right on the edge of divorce. Most people don't wait until the problem is too loud, too big, too unavoidable to address it. But you guys are listeners of the Best You podcast. You're better than that. You're the type of person who should be willing to do those tough things proactively in advance so that the problem does not get too big. And to go back to this idea of that it's a foundation to build on and a foundation to fall back on when you manage all of these areas. Think about it. When it's a foundation to build on, you have stability in the other areas of your life that set you up to be able to take risks. So for example, I have a client of mine and a friend of mine who has recently quit his full-time career to start his own business a couple months ago. And he has a couple kids. He has a kid who's starting 3rd grade in kindergarten. And he probably would not have been able to take that risk on himself if he was not already financially stable, if he didn't have a good relationship with a significant other and didn't feel supported. And so the stability that he had in these other areas of life provided him a foundation to build on, provided him a foundation in which he felt okay to take a risk. A number of years ago, when I stopped working and coaching at OTF and some of the other places that I was coaching, I wanted to ensure that I had financial stability to be able to go out and take a risk. And so it's not to say that you can't take a risk if you don't have stability in the other areas of your life, but if you're taking a risk without stability, then you might be setting yourself for a whole lot of unnecessary stress and problems. And so we don't want that to happen. And so it's a foundation to build on. It's also a foundation to fall back on. Life is going to throw you some curveballs. When tragedy strikes, you are going to be a hell of a lot more resilient if you have stability in other areas of your life. I mean, think about it. If your relationship with your significant other is in shambles and it's not very good, and then you all of a sudden out of the blue get fired from your job, the relationship probably is not going to get any better. It's probably going to make things a whole lot harder now that your career is gone and your relationship was already in shambles. And what if you don't have any financial stability? Then it's a whole lot more difficult as well. And so we want to ensure that we have stability so that when an unexpected challenge arises, or God forbid a family member comes down with a disease, or God forbid you come down with some sort of illness or sickness, it's like it doesn't wipe you out as much as it otherwise could. Doesn't mean it's going to be easy, but it means it's going to be less difficult than it otherwise would have been if you didn't neglect these areas of life. And so the practical takeaways from this is plan out your week, and don't just plan out your week from a career standpoint. Don't just plan out your week from a physical fitness standpoint. Plan out your week from all areas of your life. I want you to write these down if you have not written them down yet. Your health, your personal life, your career, your finances, your spiritual life, and your relationships. And ensure that you're defining things to do in all 6 areas at every single week. Defining what success looks like, define what managing looks like. Maybe you want to think about one of the areas that is a weak link right now. Maybe your health is in shambles and you really need to pick that up. Maybe your financial situation is in shambles and you really need to pick that up. Finding stability and managing all 6 areas of your life are going to set you up for success so that you can be consistent, so that you can take risks. And ultimately, the idea is that you have so much competence in these areas of life that you can help other people solve their problems in those areas as well. Because remember, it's not a matter of if problems are going to occur. It's a matter of when they're going to occur and how large the consequence is going to be. That's the consequence of neglect. Before I finish off here, I just want to invite you again to the Nutrition Mastery Workshop happening on Wednesday, September 3rd at 5 p.m. Central Time. If you want to join us, you can go to nickcarrier.com/mastery. We're going to be talking about the foundation things of nutrition, but this is also kind of Nutrition 2.0. So Nutrition 1.0 is our Fat Loss Forever workshop. Nutrition 2.0 is our Nutrition Mastery Workshop, where we talk about next level habits that help you with your heart health, your gut health, your brain health, and your longevity. And you can sign up for free by going to nickcarrier.com/mastery. Neglect is going to create chaos, but proactive planning builds peace. If you can manage all 6 areas of your life with intention consistently, week after week after week, you're going to eliminate a lot of things of stress that you once thought of as, quote, just part of life. If you can do these things, it's going to provide you with confidence. It's going to provide you with stability. It's going to provide you with the capacity to go out and take risks to become the best version of yourself, because that's what today is all about, to get closer to the healthiest version of yourself and ultimately to get closer and closer to your best you.